Hi guys, how are you doing? Well, I have two topics. Initially, I said I was going to talk about the devil is a liar. But first of all, I need to address a post I saw on the blogs on the comments. Pastor Ighodalo, I think the correct pronunciation is Itwan Ighodalo. I think I got that right. The husband of the late Ibiduni Ighodalo. May her soul rest in peace. Breaking: top doctor in Benue dies of COVID-19. You need to be careful with this. This COVID-19 is not a joke. It's really, really serious. It's really, really serious. You need to be careful. Now, aside that, because this is part of what I want to talk about, aside that, Italy becomes the fifth country to detect mutated COVID virus after infected British traveler flew to Rome. So, Italy also has this mutated COVID virus. Many people say evolution does not exist. There's evolution right there for you. Mutation, natural selection, survival of the fittest. Try to read some of Darwin's books. I know my spiritual brothers and sisters and pastors do not believe that evolution is real. I laugh. I really laugh. There it is, evolution right in front of you. It's happened. It's evolved. It's mutated. You know? So that's also a very serious issue. Now, in the wake of that news, Saudi Arabia has halted all international flights amid COVID-19 strain. This is Saudi, a Muslim country. They're not going spiritual about this. They're going physical. They're thinking. Saudi is employing their brain. We are joking around, faffing around. So Saudi has closed its borders to all international flights. Anything. They're protecting their citizens. Canada and some other countries have banned flights coming from the UK just to protect themselves. Nigeria, what have we done? What have we done? Nothing. Once again, our leaders are sleeping on this. Right now, our borders should be closed, but of course, their families and friends are probably abroad, so they're waiting for them to come home, and then when they come home with the virus, then they shut the border. And let's leave our leaders. Our followers are not any better than the leaders. Did you see the young man who was washing carrots with gutter water? And tomorrow he will say it's Buhari that is his problem. You are washing carrots with gutter water. And they'll say it's lack of education. They'll say you always find something to blame the government for and absolve yourself of all blame. So, what are the citizens doing? They are still doing their parties. They are still going around every day without mask. No social distancing. They're just chilling, basically. Now, I now stumbled upon an article on Linda Ikeji's blog by, it was an interviewer, Pastor Itwa Ighodalo, was quoted saying churches should be shut if necessary. As I was rejoicing with one heart that, Father, I thank you for blessing us with people that have sense and are thinking, I was beginning to feel sorry for the way they are going to bash him. So my beautiful drew my attention to it. She said, check it on Instablog. So I went on Instablog to check the same post. And I was disheartened with some of the comments I saw. People were saying, Now, wow. Una don't start again. Nigeria, my country, twali. COVID sha won't spoil December for us. It's okay. Oh. Please, let's not go back to this again. What will COVID not do? May we see the new year. This is getting serious. Waiting them senior bros go chop. Don't let Pastor... I don't know how to describe him. But he likes to do his hair collie like my own. So we don't let him hear. Oh. People are saying other business pastors will soon come. I beg, make we do crossover night first. Oh. Really? How did we get to the point where we've lost all reasoning in our chat, in our zeal to be religious? We have lost all our common sense. We have lost all our logic. We have lost everything that makes us human beings just because we want to be religious. Now, let me read what he said. He said, if we need to, there's nothing sacrosanct about a religious house. A religious house, a gathering of people wanting to worship God. If that gathering and that intimacy in the gathering will lead to the spread of germs or disease, God, because you want to worship him, will not say that the physical things that you need to do so should not be done. Physical things. Remember, I preached physical yesterday. So if we need to shut down the churches, why not? Churches were shut down several months ago. We didn't die. We survived. The churches went online, like I predicted 3 years ago. On Zoom, Christianity benefited from it because we now began to use more technology to offer our evangelism and our worship of God, and we quite enjoyed it. I agree wholeheartedly. The Zoom meetings are not as intimate, but we have managed to reduce things to household fellowships, and life must go on. He disagreed with the opinion shared in some quarters that churches played a role in the recent spike in the number of confirmed cases of the virus. To speak to the issue as to whether churches are the ones who have not allowed COVID-19 cases to go down or who are the ones going against COVID-19 protocols, I regret to say I don't quite agree. I think the government has bigger fishes to fry. If you go to any of the markets, any of the bus stops, any of the busy places, people don't wear masks. So those gatherings of people are much more than the gatherings in any church from time to time. I agree with him. You see, in as much as the government wants to impose sanctions on churches, they also must impose sanctions on markets. Schools must be closed. Schools, even to me, more important than churches because children are usually asymptomatic. So children will carry the viruses and take it home to their parents. If there's anything that should be shut first, in my opinion, is schools. We're not running anywhere. I have people who went to some of the best engineering colleges in Nigeria, private engineering universities. They are working with K Auto Detailing. They are detailing car. I was discussing with Taze Buds this morning. Our educational system has to be overhauled. Every single person that's working on my car is an engineer. I have chemical, industrial chemists that run paint booths. I have K Auto Detailing himself is a civil engineer. Razak that works with him is a chemical engineer. Then there's one that mentioned his engineer. You know, he's one of these new engineer, metaphysical engineer or some sorry, I forgot what it was. All of them went to university and all of them are engineers. So I'm like, why do you go to school to study engineering when you're detailing cars? Why don't you spend half of the money getting the equipment you need, and the other half going abroad and working as an apprentice in Mercedes-Benz or BMW or Audi, where their cars are finished. Spend 2 years there, learn everything you need to learn about painting, priming, aftercoats, detailing, sanding, everything you need to, then come back to Nigeria and do what you studied. You know? So I do not feel that if our children sit at home for 3 years, they will lose anything, because already they are just going to that school because our parents went to school and we went to school and they must go to school. You have lawyers running cook shows. You have doctors doing more Twitter work than clinic work. So at the end of the day, I believe that maybe if we sat at home for 2 years, our brain will reset. We do a lot of the things we do because our parents did them and because our grandparents did them. Someone asked me, Daddy Free, when I was growing up, said, "What's your religion?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "But your father is Muslim." I said, "So?" Because my father is Muslim, does that? So if my father is Buddhist, I'm Buddhist. If my father is Christian, I'm Christian. If my father worships Shango, I worship Shango. If my father is Muslim, I'm Muslim. No way. I need to know why I'm Muslim. Explain to me, or why I'm Christian. So I went on my path. I was born Roman Catholic, went to a Roman Catholic primary school. As I was finishing primary school, my dad introduced me to Islam, and I was Muslim for about 8 years. After that, I went to the Pentecostal church for about 20 years and then came out and established the Free Nation. So I've been on a religious and spiritual merry-go-round and roller coaster, and eventually got to where I am today. And until I received the revelation for the Free Nation, I had more questions than answers. I still have a lot of unanswered questions, don't get me wrong, but 5 years ago, it was just questions. Why is this like this? Don't worry, just believe. No, I'm not going to believe why it's like this, like that. And the worst thing is, King James mistranslated the Bible, made tremendous errors. Now, on those errors, some pastors built doctrines that they tell you are spiritual. So I sit down and I wonder, what kind of God of ignorance do you people worship? First of all, the thing you are translating to create your doctrine was error. So the error was now established. I'll give you an example. Go with me to the book of Matthew chapter 17. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. I'm reading from verse 19, Matthew 17:19. Afterwards, the disciples asked Yahushua privately, "Why couldn't we cast out that demon?" And he replied, "You don't have enough faith." He told them, "I tell you the truth, if you have enough faith, even as small as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it would move. Nothing would be impossible." Now, if you read this same verse in King James, if you read 20, and Yahushua said to them, "Because of your unbelief, I verily say unto you, if you had faith as a grain of mustard seed, you shall say to this mountain, 'Remove hence to yonder place,' and it shall remove, and nothing will be impossible to you. Howbeit, this kind goes out but by prayer and fasting." Let's read New Living Translation again. 20. There's no verse 21 in the New Living Translation. Why is there no verse 21? Because the scriptures, there were many copies of Greek scriptures. The copies of the Greek scriptures that were translated by King James, scholars have found them to be less reliable than the newer translations that were found. That is why, aside from New American Standard Version, New King James, Holman's International Standard Bible, many Bibles don't have that verse 21. Because it's a mistranslation. King James made an error. In Gideon's, do you have it in Gideon's? Let me see if Gideon's is one of the Bibles that has it. Does Gideon's have it? I don't have Gideon's. Let me Google it. Matthew 17:21, Gideon's. Matthew 17:20, Gideon's. I hope this is Gideon's. No, it's showing New International Version. I don't have Gideon's. But you see, there was an error. Christ was trying to emphasize on faith to move mountains. King James added fasting and prayer. And you built your spiritual doctrines on scriptures that we now know were erroneous. So you took some errors, I'd say grave errors, and you built your doctrines of spirituality on things that, and then you see, fasting and prayer sometimes dulls faith. Because the problem with faith is, you know you're not doing anything, you know it is God. Fasting and prayer, you fast 30 days, you don't walk now. You don't try now. You pray 5 hours, you don't pray now. So fasting and prayer sometimes transfers the work and the glory to yourself. And God's a very jealous God. So when I see all these things, I realize that a lot of us have been misled. A lot of us Somebody simply said, I'm sure most people don't know that verse 21 is not. It's not supposed to exist. It doesn't exist. And Google why. You will see that, listen here. There is no original book of any of the books of the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. What they took was different scrolls and different copies. I did a whole teaching on this way back. Just Google Daddy Freeze, copies of copies. That will give you perspective. Let me see if I have it. So what you have is copies of copies of copies of copies of copies. Now scholars now sit down. Take the copies of the Greek manuscripts. Compare them with the Latin. Then they take a whole script and they compare it to this one. And when they see that the accuracy of this script is more than the accuracy of this script, they now dump this script and they know that there are accuracy problems. King James, unfortunately, I don't want to throw him under the bus for this. I throw him under the bus regularly because he messed up. He dropped the ball seriously. But you see, King James didn't have the internet. He didn't have the archaeologists. He didn't have the level of understanding of language and history and archaeology and sociology that we have today. So he worked with what was available to him, and it was not a lot. So this particular one, I wouldn't blame King James 100%. I'll blame the fact that he worked with the materials he had. More and more materials come out every day. And more questions are being asked and more questions are being answered. And we're realizing that many of the things that's why we have a New King James. I'll give you an example. The word Lucifer does not exist in the New King James. Or no, Easter does not exist in the New King James. If you Google Isaiah 14:12. Let me see. Okay, New King James has Lucifer. King James has Lucifer. No other Bible has Lucifer. No other Bible has the name Lucifer in that verse. King James is also the only Bible that has the word Easter. And New King James, coming after King James, dropped the word Easter, knowing that it was of pagan origin. But hey, it's too late. We've copied the Germans. We have their egg-laying rabbit and their chocolate and whatever else we have that has nothing to do with the resurrection of Christ. It's all become a culture, a tradition. A pagan festival has taken over in every way. So, we build our false doctrines on the fact that you have to go to a building to pray to God. You have to go to a building to worship God, forgetting that in 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 5, Peter clearly told us that Christ is the cornerstone and we are the living stones built into the spiritual temple. Emphasis on a spiritual temple. And if you read Acts chapter 7 verse 48 and Acts chapter 17 verse 24, God does not live in temples built by human hands. So the church is not the house of God. It never was the house of God, and it will never be the house of God. It's a building where people gather to worship. And hey, we're gathering online now to worship God. So please, you don't need to go to church. You don't even need to go to school right now. People need to go to work. People need to go to the market, but those markets need to be addressed. People need to be, masks and face shields need to be ensured. So much needs to be done. This thing is not getting better, it's getting worse. And we're all setting ourselves up with the way we're behaving. So please, guys, you need to be extra careful. I beg of you, please, you don't need to go to church to worship God. As a matter of fact, I've not gone to a church building in the last 5 years except for Taze Bud's late dad's Thanksgiving. And I've worshipped God. I've led you in worship. I've given you the truth that leads you to the Spirit of God. So you have a combination of God's Spirit and truth. And we did that without setting foot in a temple. And I can even guarantee you that you learned more listening to us study the scriptures, study the real scriptures, than you would have gained if you went to a temple. So hey, at the end of the day, I'm not saying there's anything wrong in going to temples. I'm not saying there's anything right either. However, Pastor Ighodalo is 100% on point here. If churches need to be shut, let them be shut down. We didn't die. As a matter of fact, it's an opportunity for your auntie in the village that is doing you to take a break. As a matter of fact, it's the opportunity for your uncle in the village that is sending you winch to take a break. So please, what needs to be done, needs to be done. God bless you.